regular scheduled meeting for the month of November for the Multnomah Planning Commission. Mr. Grummer, do we have any announcements?
No, sir, no announcements.
Okay, and I've been asked to remind all the commissioners that for this meeting, all the microphones will be on, and we do ask you that if you're going to speak, please lean into your microphone. We'll now move on to the approval of the minutes. You've all been provided a copy in your packet. Does anyone have any corrections?
Make a motion, we accept the minutes as submitted.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Those in favor, yes?
Yes.
Those opposed, no. Minutes are approved. I see no public comments on non-agenda items, so I will now open the public hearing. See, on our agenda, we have a number of items on old business, being the termination or closing of preliminary plat approvals. Mr. Grummer.
So, Mr. Chair, at the beginning of the month, we had several items for extension. One of the things that we've been doing since we've come into the planning department is kind of cleaning up some of the past actions and getting the department up to date, since this past year has been a little lopsided with the transfer from the previous planning director. So the items that are on here, basically the extensions, were from planning commission actions over the past few years, which had expired. After whenever this first came on the agenda, these items wasn't well communicated as far as this being an administrative process or a planning commission process between the applicant's representative and the city. So after we went through, the applicant removed the items that weren't necessarily needed for extension, other than the one item for 3 and 4, which is the Country Club of Arkansas Phase 24B. That development was approved in October of 2018, and then a revision was approved in January of 2019, which expired in January of 2021. So the applicant is requesting an extension of time on this this development. Staff took this through at the beginning of the month with not as much understanding of what the process is on extensions, because the city apparently, or the Planning Commission, hasn't seen extensions as much in the past. And throughout the month, as we were working through this, we realized that past procedures from the staff were, if an approved preliminary plat and development plan had passed its 1-year period, then it would be resubmitted. My understanding of extension process is fairly simple, or at least in the past was, but with that, our recommendation was approval of the extension whenever we made the recommendation to the applicant to send it through. But in hindsight, understanding how past processes had been done by staff, staff's recommendation should have been as a resubmission instead of an extension. So staff, it's a lot more based on the development in our cursory review of the plat and the preliminary development plan. There's not any changes. The civil plans have been submitted, and staff would still request approval of the extension.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner Todd?
Question. We hop from old business to new business. I have an old business question. The Planning Commission doesn't have to do anything on these termination or closings, right?
No.
That's all a staff level issue.
I'm sorry, I jumped over that, didn't I? Thanks for catching me.
Okay.
The old business items on extensions, this is just for your information.
Okay.
These items have expired, and we just wanted it as a public process to let everybody know that they're expired.
And Mr. Chairman, can we move to new business now? And do you have anything to say?
Anybody else have anything on old business? All right. Hearing nothing, we will move into new business, and considering I have a conflict of interest on items number 3 and 4, which are now the first two items on our agenda, I will pass the meeting over to Commissioner Todd for those agenda items.
Okay, thank you, sir. The extension for request, we've already started in discussion on that. Scott, do you have anything else to add?
No, sir.
Okay, does any staff members, any commissioners have questions of staff on item 3? I have one. On the development plan, now, the preliminary plat and the development plan, they have different time frames as far as expiration. Is that correct?
Well, the preliminary plan and the development plan both have 1-year expirations.
Okay, it's just 1 year.
Correct. Once the final plat has been approved, then there's a 2-year time frame.
Okay, so the preliminary development plan is a 1 year, but the final plat or the final development plan is a 2 year, correct?
I'm sorry. The final plat, once it's filed and once it's approved, then the subdivision is approved and they can move forward because everything's already been set.
Okay.
For site plan development, that's commercial. Those typically have 2-year approval periods.
Okay. Any commissioners have questions of staff on this?
So why did the other ones withdraw and this one didn't?
So when we first submitted this through, it was more of an administrative process to clean up our files and get active projects up to date. So initially, we had anticipated this being a staff level decision because in the ordinance, whenever you read it, it says generally 1 year. Some of those items were just barely over 1 year, but construction hadn't begun on them. So the applicant's representative felt that it was easier to have an extension versus have to resubmit. I wasn't very familiar with the extension process here in Maumelle. I was in Conway. So after the subcommittee meeting, the applicant contacted us and said that the primary item that needed addressing was Phase 24B of CCA. The other items were not, they can resubmit. One of the items, Phase 19, which is actually had ongoing activity and construction activity, which would, that one doesn't necessarily need to have an extension because construction activity has been ongoing. But the recommendation at staff now at this point with that particular item is for the applicant to resubmit their development plan and plat to, I'm sorry, that one's, we found is fine. So they just need to submit the final plat for recording so that they, before they get into the permitting process, which we've been told that they're in the process of getting their plans ready for submitting to the city.
Any other commissioner questions of staff?
Yeah, I would have a question on what you just said on Phase 19.
Yes, sir.
You're saying there's considerable work that has been done.
They've had infill, they've had to grade and fill in for the development, which has been ongoing. They got held up, other than a period of time where they got held up by the Corps of Engineers in order to get their 404 permit up to date. But beyond that, they've had continuous progress, and they're now at the point to where they're ready to submit their building plans.
That seems a little strange because it did appear like there was a whole lot of work going on after 22 months. It's recent activity that's been going on at that location. So I would question the fact that it's been continuous, but that's beside the point.
Well, I have noticed that there's been a lot of dirt placed and dug out and moved and then placed again. But you're right. Okay, any other questions?
So that activity that's going on, has construction plans been submitted and approved?
Not yet, but we've been notified by the applicant that they're ready, they're close to submitting those, so they've been asking what the next step in the process is, and they cannot have any building permit issued until a final plat is filed, so I told them that's the next step, is getting their final plat and development plan approved, which does not have to come back through planning commission as long as there's no substantial changes from the preliminary.
So construction is complete?
Well, so there's no streets, there's no right-of-way easements, there's no dedications, unlike a subdivision such as 24B, which requires dedication of improvements. So there's nothing on this project. Actually, it could have been finalized a while back.
Oh, I see, thank you. I have a question for our city attorney. And just as a way that I read back through the code a little bit, and is it your opinion what is your opinion on the extensions? Do all extensions come before us? You know, if they, you know, has this a little bit of loose language in there, generally when 1 year, so when what is going to become maybe it's two-edged sword here. Are we saying at a year it's expired, we'll send notification if Scott elects to do so, and then regardless of the extension, it comes back before us? Is that?
For the final development, for the preliminary development plan under 94-451 D1A, that comes to the planning commission. Request for extension shall be submitted in writing to the planning commission, which shall not unreasonably withhold approval. As far as for the preliminary plat, those, you know, there is some discretion there as far as whether construction is ongoing. So that's a little bit of a different situation. Let me go back and grab 70. Let me get it again. It's 70-73 D1A. Preliminary plat approved by the planning commission shall be effective and binding upon the commission for 12 months or as long as construction work is actively progressing, at the end of which time the final plat application for the subdivision must have been submitted to staff. Any plat not receiving final approval within the period of time set forth in this section or otherwise conforming to the requirements of this section shall be null and void. So this particular section seems to anticipate that as long as construction is ongoing, that clock keeps running.
That's different than the preliminary development plan.
It is different than the preliminary development plan.
But you can't, in most cases, they'll always go together. Not always, I guess, depends on the requirement, I guess, of the area.
Well, you know, in some places you might not have a preliminary development plan.
Yeah, vice versa.
And I would add in there that it says that time extensions must be applied for before time lapses on all preliminary approvals, so that would be both the development plan and the plat. And that's one of the things we looked at during the review process, was the difference between the development plan and the plat and what the requirements are between the two. Another backstory on it is that when this came across, we thought the original approval was in October 2018, and being called a Phase 24B, we were under the impression there was a phase on this. So throughout the last couple of weeks, in an expedited manner, because of the short month, we had to do a back check on all the previous submissions to Planning Commission. So just a little backstory, Planning Commission originally saw this in 2014 in a phased approach with a Phase A, B, and C. But there's issues with wetlands and delineation. So with that, we were under the impression that it was a phased project, which allows state's development timeline. four-phase project. So there was some misunderstandings on our part on the front end when this came through, as well as recommendations between whether it should be an actual extension or whether it should be a submission. On my side, my recommendation was an extension, but that was really kind of a misguidance on my part. It really should have been a resubmission. But with that, the extension, because we haven't seen anything underlying that's changing, is cleaner, and it still would be within their development timeline to get it done with an extension.
So the code it makes reference that construction is commencing, so when, was there any construction plans approved during this period? Or I understand the construction has commenced. So can you give me a status on that?
So civil plans have been submitted and are being reviewed. To my understanding, they're set to be approved. They're supposed to have them to us by tomorrow.
When did we receive those?
Which time?
Has there been several submissions? I get the inference that there is, or several iterations, or there's just been one submission for plans and specs for the engineer to review?
I'm not aware of any multiple submissions on this particular phase.
Okay, so there's just one.
To my understanding, yes.
So construction couldn't have commenced without the approval of those drawings, in accordance with our requirements.
I'd have to check on that for you.
Depends on what you call construction, because the land, I think, has been cleared.
Well, that's just general mass grading, right?
Well,
It would fall under grading.
but again,
permit.
since we don't have a grading permit, that has to come under the preliminary plat.
There
Right.
you go. Okay.
Any other commissioner questions?
The applicant, yes.
Yeah, is there anyone in the audience wishes to speak?
Eric Holloway, 116, God, that's really loud. 116 Natural, Timberland Trail in Maumelle. I'm obviously gonna have to start looking at these agendas when they're sent to me. So to answer your question as to earlier, just real quick, if I can, I just thought it was a staff process. I didn't see the harm in just going ahead and extending when Brandy came in my office and asked, because Scott had called and asked about these projects. But I would never have submitted them for extension. I don't believe that Benson or Albright or a lot of these other ones will ever come back before you. And honestly, about Phase 19, the only thing that's been done there is work from the seller to satisfy the contract with the buyer. So I would not argue with the commission if you wanted to see the development plan from the buyer again. So that's something staff can look at, and I don't think that would be a problem. We can do that.
If I can interrupt you, I think that property has changed hands, at least the
It has.
Treasury office shows a Minnesota address.
That's correct. The buyer has taken, but there's still money in escrow for the seller to meet the, pad-ready site that was a part of that deal. And with respect, with this extension, there's no doubt we should have submitted in a timely manner. I think you guys all got a letter from me. I feel like we were certainly responsible. I'm not going to blame COVID or anything like that. I think it was actually before COVID hit that the extension should have been asked for. But I will say, for many years, and I'm probably spoiled by it, but Jim always did call and ask about extensions. So, obviously we've learned our lesson, and you won't see this again.
Yeah, I do have a couple of questions for you. This property was in the wetlands, if I remember properly.
When we first submitted in 2014, as was said, the last part of this, 24C, which will come in the future, we believe, was right along about a 30-acre delineation that we now have. We have that delineation completed. This 24B is not within 300-400 feet of that, maybe even further. I'd have to go back and look, but it's not a part of or adjacent to any of those delineated wetlands.
Well, there was extensive discussion on both of the October and the January meeting about the wetlands needing to have a 404 or something.
I think that's the
What is-
reason for the
what's
change.
going on with that?
That was the reason for the change, I think, for when we came in. Mark was the one that did that. I do have some memory of it, but it was, and Tommy could maybe even enlighten you even more, but I think the first time we came in with 24B, we had some area that we were gonna include that was gonna attach to Milligan Drive that was right against that delineated wetland. And just to get out of that issue, we pulled it back and submitted a revised plan that wasn't anywhere near the wetland.
There was also a discussion or requirement that a Clomer F was to.
That was done.
Apply for. Has that
I think
been
we've,
done
I think we've,
as far as that?
yeah, we've provided that to staff.
Yes, they've provided that to staff.
It has been provided?
Yes, sir.
And we submitted our construction plans on October 13th. That question came up just a while ago.
Okay, I guess my final question would be, in the 22 months, what actually has gone on that piece of property? What's been done?
On 24B?
Yeah.
I mean, for us, it would just been to do whatever preliminary work we do to get ready for construction, you know, preliminary surveys and permitting.
I mean, is there any work being done or have been done on that site?
Not beyond surveying and,
So there's
No,
clearing,
actual
nothing
construction.
at this juncture?
no, just in the last few weeks. Now, I will say in the past, and what we've done on many projects before, is if we have an approved preliminary plat with grading, and this is something Mayor Watson and I talked about extensively in the past, we've always been able to clear and grade to those grades, but you couldn't do any of the heavy civil until you had a full approval of the city engineer. Beyond those things.
That's all I've got.
Any other commissioner questions of applicant?
Hey, Eric, so, since you, I just asked a couple questions here. So before, Jim would always, I guess this is a little bit for my edification, perhaps Scott, so he would always call you.
Yes.
So he says, hey, man, this is what's going on. So that, when that extension, and then you'd write a letter of some sort, or what would you?
I usually would just say, and he would just take care of it. The only time that I can think of, most of the time I let him go, because honestly, usually 12 months is enough for that to shake out. And I would know, you know, but the only other time I can think of that I asked for the extension, I did not give him a letter, but was for the Osborne that's on here, track 4, because I thought it may still shake out, but it didn't. But that's the only time I can think of that I actually asked for an extension. But it was after him calling me. But he did call me periodically through a year every time one would come up, but, you know, often things shake out.
Now, your opinion as I'm city attorney, that when that occurs, it has to come before the commission?
For a preliminary development plan.
Only, preliminary plat, no.
It doesn't specify, it says that it should be applied for all preliminary matters, it should be, applied for, requested before it lapses, but it only specifies, that it can be planning commission for preliminary development plan.
So item 3 could be handled at staff level.
For the plat, for 24B, I mean, there's some issue as to whether that plat is null and void, because, I mean, you just said there was no construction, so after 12 months, it's null and void if he hasn't been given an extension by anyone.
And I guess I'm a little confused about our ordinance. Is survey considered construction? Does it say it's not?
I don't know that construction has a definition in this particular chapter.
Eric, whenever you go out there and survey, you charge him money, don't you?
I do definitely charge money, yes.
So there's actually work that's being paid for.
It's physical work on site.
I think that's a stretch.
It is a stretch, but
That's a major stretch.
But again, we have other things that are causing a stretch. We lost Mr. Neri earlier this year. Actually, we lost him middle of last year because he was not doing well and not performing like he normally does. And I think we all agree that he always went above and beyond to make sure that the applicants knew that they had timelines coming up and made everybody comfortable in doing the work. So,
That's fine, but that's not what the ordinance says.
no, it's not.
And I think that we're on the verge of setting a precedent here that all these items that had gone over the 12 months, you might as well just go ahead and pass all of them.
Well, I can't disagree with that.
And I think that that's totally wrong, because what are we gonna do in the future?
Okay.
I think each one has to be heard on, and I said this 2 weeks ago, Mike, is I think each one of them, what I was prepared to do is see the whole list of them in here and have to hear each one of them on their own merit. I think the code gives us that flexibility. I hate this word generally in there. I wish that it wasn't, but it's not. So I think the code has given us some latitude, but I understand your position too and respect it.
But Eric, did you not say that no construction has been started?
I would not pose a definition for construction either, but all the work that's been done, other than what's happened in the last few weeks, was just preliminary survey,
So no.
So
clearing
what's
and
happened
grubbing?
in the last few weeks?
clearing and grubbing.
But that was, and even under Mike Watson's regime, that was permitted, if you will.
Yeah, we could have done that at any time, since we had preliminary plat approval. I think they waited till they had financing in place. Which I went into issues on that. I mean, that is a difficult world today to try to get funding, especially when you have 7 different partners on a project.
Any other commissioner questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion for the extension request for 1 year on the preliminary plat for 24B.
I make a motion to, in the affirmative, the extension request for 1 year extension of preliminary plat approval for Country Club Phase 24B be originally approved on 1/24/19 by Cypress Bay Development LLC applicant be approved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? And you did make that in positive form, right?
Yes, sir, I think
Okay.
that would be preferred. Yes, so a vote yes would be supporting the extension.
With that, all those in favor say yes?
Yes.
Yes.
All those opposed say no?
No.
No.
So we got 2, 2, 3. Adrian, I didn't.
4-2.
4-3.
4-2.
4, 2,
Yeah.
excuse me.
Mr. Chair's the extension, but it's
4-2.
Back up the truck here a minute. 4-2? Where's it 4-2?
No. I said it should be Scott's, or David's votes is a no, does it not, Madam Chair?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Roll call vote, Mr. Todd. Please go ahead and do a roll call vote.
Okay, let's do a roll call vote.
Yes for the extension.
Yes for the extension.
And I vote,
I'm just noting my abstention for the record.
and yes,
No. Yes.
No.
okay. So it passes.
Correct.
All right. Next item is the extension for the preliminary development plan, which is basically the same criteria. Is that correct, Scott?
That is correct, sir.
Any questions from staff? Any questions from commissioners? Anyone wish to speak? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion, we approve the extension for the request for a 1 year extension of preliminary development plan approved for Country Club Arkansas Phase 24B. Originally approved on 1/24/19 by planning commissioners of the city council via resolution number 2019-05 on 2/4/19. Any other comments?
Do I have a second? Second. A motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor say yes?
Yes.
All those opposed say no?
No.
Okay, same story. All right, the next item on the agenda it's your turn, sir.
You can keep it if you'd like, but I will take it back. After the cancellations, we now move on to item number 9 on the agenda, the preliminary plat for the applicant, northwest corner of Lewis Nelson Drive in Carnahan. Mulno Land Development LLC is the applicant. Mr. Grummer, staff report.
So, this is a preliminary plat, in the industrial park off of Lewis Nelson Drive. The applicant is requesting a subdivision for a lot to be developed, next to, the Cypress Bay, cold storage. There's really nothing, particular about this. The applicant has met all staff, requests, and staff recommends approval of the plat.
All right, thank you, Mr. Grummer. Do any commissioners have any questions of staff?
Yes, I have one. Scott, there was some question about this drainage ditch and all of that. Did that get resolved?
So, the applicant is they've put a drainage easement around the perimeter of the lot, and they're leaving the actual drainage ditch that's going through it, would be tied to any development of the lot and would be delineated if needed, at that point in time.
Okay. So that would happen at the next phase of this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's all I got.
Further questions of staff? Do we have any question of the applicant's representative?
Mr. Chairman, I have one.
Do we have an applicant's representative? Please come forward and state your name and address, please.
I'm Roland Chega, 107 Beaver Creek Lane, Maumelle.
Yes, sir. Do you pretty much agree with everything Mr. Grummer just said about?
Yes.
Okay. And that's all I got.
Okay. Thank you.
Further questions of the applicant? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, we approve the preliminary plat for the property located at northeast, or northwest corner of Lewis Nelson Drive and Carnahan Drive.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Those in favor, yes?
Yes.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries. Moving on to item number 10, the final plat approval for the replat of Lot 820RR, Country Club of Arkansas. Mr. Grummer, staff report.
All right, Mr. Chair, the Planning Commission has seen several replats similar to this in the past in the Country Club of Arkansas, where there's lots and the owners have had the ability to take on additional feet in the rear of their property, extending into the golf course. So this is one that's similar to that. The applicant has met all staff comments, and the staff recommends approval contingent upon all commissioner comments. The main point from the replat was that the setback was increased to accommodate the easements that are in the back.
All right. Any commissioners have questions of staff?
Thank you.
Any commissioners have any questions of the applicant?
I do.
Yes, sir.
Previously on both of these, I asked if there were any existing utilities in the land that was moved, and are they noted?
No, because we didn't move any easement on his lot, so it's basically just stayed at the same place.
Okay.
Any further questions of the applicant? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the final plat. I'm sorry, Scott. Motion to approve the final plat for lot 820RR for Country Club of Arkansas, Holloway Engineering being the applicant. Any other commissioner staff comments?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, yes?
Yes.
Those opposed, no. All right, motion carries. Moving on to item number 11, the final plat approval for the replat of Lot 621R in Country Club of Arkansas. Mr. Grummer, staff report.
All righty. This is a replat similar to the previous one you just saw, where there's a lot in the Country Club of Arkansas that's asked to acquire and add on additional footage into the golf course, which has been allowed in the past. You'll notice that the change from the previous plat that you saw, there was no easement running through the center part of the lot. That was replaced because the 10-foot drainage easement is not being, it's not being removed at this time, so that remains on the plat with the additional setback requirements and easements around the perimeter. The applicant's representative has corrected all the items on the plat from staff. Staff recommends approval of the replat contingent upon any commissioner comments.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson?
Thank you. So the 10-foot easement is not for the 10-foot drainage and the utility easement is staying? So there's utilities running through that easement?
I would have to leave that up to the applicant's representative to answer that.
I'm just curious why you want to do that. Are you going to maintain the easement through the middle of the lot?
Well, it was an existing easement. I'm sorry.
Come on up.
It was an existing easement, so it's the same answer like on the previous lot. We didn't move any easement, just a lot line.
But they wouldn't.
If
they
the
wouldn't be able to-
owner,
Is the owner, is the house constructed there now?
yes,
But they wouldn't be able to construct anything over that easement?
right, and that would be another replat if they want to move the easement. But at this point, we don't do that.
Is there any easements in the corridor? I mean, excuse me, is there any utilities in the corridor?
Well, we don't know that. It's just a drainage and utility easement for
So you
utility
didn't
companies.
call for location?
We can find out if the owner requests us to, or the owner can actually find out if there's any utilities in his backyard or in that easement.
Then they have to replat it again.
Right. But they didn't hire us to do that, so we just moved the lot line because they wanted to purchase extra land to probably move the fence back there, or I don't know what else they want to do there.
Of course, this will go into our file for future reference, so if any permits are pulled for any,
Right.
any accessory buildings or pools, then this will come up and this will have to be addressed at that point in time.
So if my recollection is accurate, the rear of that house is pretty close to that rear lot line, so there may not really be, I mean, the building space for an accessory structure or pool is likely beyond the drainage easement anyway as a practical matter, but then again, if a replat's required, then the owner may just have to do that.
My guess is there's something in it, but I don't know that for a fact, that's why I asked.
Further questions of the applicant or staff? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the final plat for replat of 621R on Country Club of Arkansas, pending other commissioner or staff comment.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, yes?
Yes.
Those opposed, no. The motion passes. All right, I will now close the public hearing, and we will move on to city council liaison reports for the meeting of October 5th. Commissioner Ramsey.
There was really nothing for the planning commission on there, other than Energy did come and speak about the outages. If you're interested, listen to the video.
Thank
They
you.
talked for a while.
Thank you, Commissioner Ramsey. October 19th, Commissioner Todd.
And I am not chairman anymore, but, you can watch the video. I left my notes at home.
Mr. Grummer, what came of the connecting, I sent an email, you may have responded, the connecting, between Osage and Malmo Valley Estates regarding that, grade variance that we dealt with?
That went through its third reading and was passed.
All right, liaison assignments for November. think our agenda's off a little bit.
Yeah, I think it is too on second. I don't know. I saw that today and I'm like, was I supposed to attend? So I didn't either, so I'm sorry. I can give the report the next time though. I'm happy to do that. I'll go back and look at it if you want to keep it on the agenda.
Until then, we can refer to the video. Commissioner Green, did you by chance attend this week?
I did the video, man. Did the video, third reading of ordinance 1016 passed. That was regarding catastrophic leave. Third reading 1015 clarifying on what is considered a nuisance. And that passed. A couple of resolutions adopted. Of course, it had something to do with reduced rate of compensation for city council members and the mayor. And one thing was like 3% or something like that.
Reduction?
You heard it.
The mayor's head just jerked up. Not how I remember it.
Anyway,
All right.
that was it.
Well, I apologize. If you could, Mr. Grummer, would you please add who's coming, it's because I misread this all day long. The way that we typically have it presented, and maybe we're all spoiled, is that we would be for the next month. And I assure you, that's what I thought when I saw that.
No, and I apologize, that wasn't updated on the agenda like it should have been. So would you like me to share who's responsible?
Mr. Grover was a half step ahead of Commissioner Johnson and was passing these over, but I'll let Mr. Grover read those assignments.
So they had me down there for the chairman too, so.
If you would like the spot.
Oh, my goodness. Are you kidding me? All right.
One other thing, since the mayor is here on the video, the volume, I don't know if anybody else that watches it have a problem with the volume, but it is like real low.
So you have to sit up into the microphone to build for the microphone to pick up to you.
But I'm talking about listening on my computer. Yeah, it's
We
real.
said that the attendees are not properly speaking into the microphone.
Right.
Mr. Grummer's blaming the council members.
Right.
It's not your fault, Aaron. You're not hard of hearing, Adrian.
All right. So I was kind of thinking if I need to go buy me some more speakers.
Or some hearing aids?
Yeah.
All right, Mr.
So-
Grover.
Motion adjourned?
Well, so the December assignments are Commissioner Smith and Commissioner Fisher.
You knew that, didn't you, Matt?
Yep, me too.
Fisher's on top of things. Anybody have a motion?
Motion adjourned.
Second. Motion and a second. All those in favor, yes?
Yes.
We are adjourned.
Sure, brass everything.